I'm going to set the scene a little bit.
Yeah.
It's Thursday, February 15th. Naomi Brady wakes up to a new reality that she's just launched a collection with Arsenal Football Club. She's aged 27. What's the woman from 5 years ago saying to her right now? She embraces this new reality of being this person.
Ooh, that's a hard question. Where was I at 2019? What was I doing? I was still definitely in grind mode, still trying to figure it out. I think I might have been at Benjart. So I think I was at not the very beginning of my career, but quite earlier on. And I wouldn't have been able to believe that this would have happened. Just because, you know, when you start out, you think, okay, cool, I want to be a designer for this brand, X brand, or whatever. I think I didn't really have it in my head at the time that I wanted to have my own brand and I was going to do collabs and I was going to do it that way. So yeah, I think the me back then looking at me now is definitely proud. And it feels surreal. That's the word that I've been using constantly because it doesn't even feel real. It feels like a club that I've literally grown up supporting. My mum is a huge Arsenal fan. And it's like I'm doing a collab with them. It doesn't even sound like something, especially where it's the first of its kind in this kind of collaboration.
Yeah.
Usually you find with like big clubs, they will do a collab with like another big designer or a designer that's like has a much higher profile. But I think for somebody who is on the rise still to have this opportunity, yeah, it just feels surreal. So where I was back then to now, it feels miles apart, but also not that far apart. It doesn't feel that far.
What makes it feel surreal? Is it that the fact of the step up to the occasion, or do you feel like in your head that this was too soon, or like what makes it feel like it doesn't feel real almost, like you're saying?
I think it's just this kind of collab is something that I would have dreamt about. Like this sounds like it's a dream collab. It's like it's one that I feel like is a cultural fit as well as like a design fit. Just me being able to be very creative and to have like complete creative freedom to create a collection. I feel like it's something that it's not something that is easy to come by. It's easy to like, for example, like get a design job or work with a brand and like, you know, your name isn't really out there with it. It's just something that you worked on as like a consultant or as a freelancer or contractor or something. So I think for the way that it was like a collaboration, that's why it feels surreal. It feels like this is normally like an opportunity that's afforded to people that are much further along in their career. And I feel like although I have a lot of experience, it just feels like it feels not too soon. I wouldn't say it feels too soon. It just feels like a surprise that it's actually happening. Like the ball is really rolling and it's like everything's just kind of happening now.
And do you feel like you stepped up to the occasion? Do you feel in your place as I'm Naomi Brady, the designer now?
Definitely. I think at the time, because literally the day that I got the Arsenal collab, that I found out about it, is the same day that I quit my job. And it's like, it felt like very much like a sign. Do you know what I mean? Like a sign from the universe, or like a sign from God kind of thing, because it was like, I was in a job, and although like I'm a designer, I'm going to always love designing regardless. But I felt like I was at a point where it was like, no, I want more. Like I felt like I had hit a wall and like I was kind of like, no, I feel like a bit stuck. And you know, when you get that feeling, it's like you start to just feel comfortable and you start to feel irritated all the time. And it's like the feeling takes over you that you need a new challenge. You need something.
You need the next step.
Yeah, you need the next step to come. So I incredibly impulsively quit my job literally that morning. And although I had an email from the marketing agency like a week before, it was like it wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. It was just like, oh yeah, someone told me about an opportunity. Like I've sent through my portfolio. They didn't say what it was. It was just quite vague. And then on the day, like when I quit my job and I got home, I saw the email that I'd gotten it. So it kind of felt like everything had like aligned together.
Coming together.
On that day. Yeah.
I mean, just speaking about jobs, so I just want to run through. So you were at Jonathan Saunders as an intern. Nazir Masara, I think.
Yeah, Nazir Mazar, yeah.
Yes, as an intern. Mark Jacobs as an intern.
Yeah.
You were at Benjart as an intern. Stitched as...
Not as an intern at Benjart.
Sorry, head designer.
Yeah, at Benjart, yeah.
Correction, a head designer at Benjart, get it right.
Yeah.
Stitched as a product designer. So, I mean, you said you'd quit your job. So I want to say, I mean, to my next question is, to talk to me about what it means to hone, learn and understand your craft. With that job, you also quit, because I'm guessing there was experiences of learning, honing your craft in those roles.
Definitely. I would say that I'm so grateful for all those job roles. Like, even when I maybe got to the point where I wanted to leave, I can never deny how much I've learned on the job at all of those. I'd probably say of all of them, Benjart the most, just because that was such an experience, and there was so much trust and responsibility given. I feel like I'll give I went to uni. I went to LCF in London, which is London College of Fashion, and I studied pattern cutting. And I just wanted to be somebody that was able to make whatever I wanted. That was kind of going to be enough for me. So like, if I could design or I could make the clothes, like, I didn't really mind. That was going to be enough. But then I think maybe like second year, I was like, I don't really get this stuff. Like, I don't really get sewing. Like, I'd never studied fashion before. I wanted to be an artist originally, and my parents were like, there's not really
musical artist or
no, like a painter. I used to draw a lot, and I still do draw.
Yes.
But that was like my passion, and my parents were like, there's not much money in art. It's a bit like of a slim chance. So like, maybe you should think about like what else is out there, kind of thing. So I did a BTEC, but it's not called a BTEC, in art and design. So like, we did like fashion, architecture, graphic design, art, like fine art. So it was quite like broad, and it was like then that I thought, okay, cool, I think fashion is for me. But when I went to fashion school, you realize it's a different ballgame. Like, these are people here that have been studying fashion since they were like children. Like, maybe their parents were seamstresses, or there was just a lot more knowledge that I didn't have at that point. So I was like, okay, cool, let me start off by just trying to make stuff. So I did I have a lot of Nigerian friends, and they were like going to hall parties and stuff like that, and like weddings. It was like, can you make me something out of this material? So I was like, I'm gonna get better at my skills, and then I'm doing like a favor for somebody, so it like works hand in hand. And I was getting better, but I was like, no, I need more industry experience. So literally, while I was at uni, I interned at Jonathan Saunders and Nazir Mazar. So that was quite intense, doing both of them at the same time. I feel like as an intern, you're kind of trying to understand the industry and like what's going on. You're not really given that much responsibility, but you're kind of starting to understand like how all the pieces fit together in like a fashion brand. Like, I feel like when you're at uni, it's quite a sheltered environment. Like, you think, okay, cool, I'm going to be creative, and it's just like that. But it's like, no, there's costings, there's business, there's production, there's so much layers to it. So I think I would say definitely working at Marc Jacobs and like moving to New York was like a very big change for me, because I'd never worked at a brand on that level with like, there was like 13 stories of like different departments. Like, I'd never seen somebody operate at that level, like a brand operate at that level.
So do you think within that though, do you think that there was definitely a difference between interning in the UK with a fashion brand versus interning in the US, and that major difference being the scale of production, or what do you think that was?
I'm not sure whether it's because Jonathan Saunders was a big brand. Nazir Mazar was a big brand, but it had a very small, the way it was run behind the scenes was quite homegrown. It was quite like grassroots. Yeah. And I think of everywhere, he probably inspired me the most to become a designer, just because seeing the way he operated, I probably related with him the most. It was just literally him and his technician and interns, and it was like they got so much done all the time. So I think for me, it was like very good seeing it from that grassroots level. It felt accessible, it felt attainable for me. I think going to Marc Jacobs was like, wow, that's like an LVMH company. They're like, the budget is different, everything is just different. It's just
the team's bigger.
The team's bigger. The equipment used is just on 10. And I think also in the UK compared to the US, a lot of sampling and some production happens in the US, whereas in the UK, a lot of it is outsourcing to the Eastern Europe or Turkey or China or something. So I think with Marc Jacobs, it was like, you could see everything around you, or you'd go to the garment district and you'd have to buy all the supplies yourself. You'd have to go to the factories and like give them the fabrics and whatever. So it was just seeing like two different ways of like it happening, but learning a lot from both sides. That there's things from either side that you can learn from. And then going on to Benjart, that was like a complete different experience, because his level was he's a next level businessman. Like he's where I learned that business is as important, if not more important than the creativity of sometimes. And I feel like I'm very much creative and like, okay, I want to create this and this is my vision and but it's like, okay, but what are the numbers? What are the profit margins? What is going to be the outcome of this collection? And what is the one?
did you realize at that point that you needed to be more than just a creative that focused on the actual garment making side,
Yeah.
and actually turn on and go, actually, I need to understand the entrepreneurial side as well.
Definitely.
As well as this. I need to be a creative entrepreneur in a sense.
Yeah, you have to marry the two. And I think you will find that somebody who has more of the entrepreneur skills might succeed more than somebody who has more of the creative skills. Just because the entrepreneur part is the key, I feel like. That is once you understand like marketing and production and like logistics, and I feel like it's basically understanding like, how can I repeat this process over and over and over again? How can I create this product that is a great product, like great design, great function, but how can I repeat this process over and over again? And it's like, it goes way beyond creative. Obviously creative is important, like branding and like how it looks, because that's like for your customer experience. But it's like, if customers aren't receiving their orders on time, no one's happy. If the quality is not what it's supposed to be, no one's happy. If you have planned out all the dates wrong and you promised somebody to get it this time and it's coming this time, no one's going to be happy. Do you know what I mean? So I think you really start to realize the importance of business. I learned that a lot, and I wouldn't have learned it had I not have worked with those companies. And I'd say Benjart is the key place, because he gave me a lot of trust. Like when he hired me off the back of the K-Swiss collaboration. And I think a lot of people, I'm not saying they underestimate me, but I'm not really a very forthcoming person. Like I'm just like, do you like the designs, or yes or no? Like I haven't really got time to kind of sell it to you or whatever. I'm not really a salesperson. I'm just like, do you like it? Yes or no? So I think a lot of times people like underestimate me, and like us underestimate what I'm going to do for them. So he kind of hired me just like, okay, cool, yeah, junior designer, whatever. And it was like it was very much a quick progression of like, okay, cool, let's try this. And it was like, I kind of wanted to really change the direction of the brand from being what a UK streetwear company is expected to be to what it could be. And like, sorry, go on.
Do you think seeing, as you said, Marc Jacobs influenced that at all?
Probably, because I feel like I learned a lot. I was a sample room intern, so yeah, I did really work very closely with the product, but I wouldn't say in terms of design. I'd probably say that Nazim Mazar was probably more of an influence, because it was like in my head I was like, culturally, where do I feel like we're at, and where do I feel like the vision is to be. Like for example, at the time it was like, I feel like Moncler is obviously a big brand always, but like Moncler and North Face were like very big brands. And I was like, okay, how can we create like puffer jackets that are like homegrown? How can we create this that is like a UK streetwear brand, creating products that's like the same level as those companies, same quality, but different designs that no one's seen before, colors that are like a bit more of a risk, that I feel like sometimes a lot of UK brands at the time didn't really want to take a risk. It was like quite dark colors and quite neutral, so that it wasn't like anything garish. I was like, how can we push that? Because it may not be that being the piece that is the one that sells the most, but that's the piece that gets noticed the most. And then people go on the website and they're seeing what else is on there, and then it kind of like builds a relationship with customers. And yeah, I think that he just gave me that trust to be like, what do you think? What do you think, Naomi? Like, what do you think we should do right now?
I think that there was definitely a shift in the way, definitely, if you paid attention to how Benjart evolved over that period of time. Like you said, towards the more colorways, towards a different style of puffer jackets, and whatnot. Do you then think that for a fashion designer that's growing, they need that level of trust that Benjart was able to give you? Because look at the result it had. Do you think it's a case of, because you had the Marc Jacobs experience, because you had the Nazir experience, do you think you were able to go in there with that confidence and going, actually, I can do something at this level that can shift the brand to a different direction? I
think, if I'm honest with you, probably not from there, just because those places, they don't really trust you. You're an intern, you're a number to them. Not in a mean way, but just like in a way of like, realistically, most interns come on board and they're just following instructions. You know what I mean? Whatever needs to be done is what they're doing. I think the K-Swiss collaboration was where I was like, okay, maybe I can do my own thing, and maybe I can, because I think with that it was like they reached out to me and then they really liked the collection, and then they made my collection the cover, and then it was like, oh, I started to have more confidence in myself about what I can do. And I think they were more trusting because they were like, we want it to be very danceable, we want it to be very colourful. Whereas like other places before that are not asking me for my opinion on that. They're just they have their design set ready to go. So I think it was probably that collaboration that made me realise that a brand can trust you to do something and do it your own way and on your own terms, and like to have complete creative control over the situation. So I think, and also like when I posted that, it had like a really good response. So that's where he saw it, and then that's where it all came from.
He reached out to you.
But I think it's definitely a growing into. I think not all designers have the confidence off the bat, especially like where I feel like a lot of designers, you start off and it's like, you know, you can create something that's good, but you maybe don't have the taste level yet to execute it properly. Like it's all you kind of mature as a designer. Like who I was like in the very beginning is so different to who I am now. Yeah, but I'm still the same amount of creativity. Like I'm still a creative. It's just I feel like I understand now how to execute things better. But that kind of comes from people giving you trust and like trusting you to create something, and then you like you go from there.
Yeah, and I think between that period, you took a step back. So why did you, and what did that actually mean for you? Did it help you in the longer term? Did it benefit you in the shorter term? How did that actually benefit you at all?
I mean, I've taken a lot of step backs. So like throughout the time, I've taken quite a few. Like I might be like really doing like a lot at a point, and then it's like,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think it's important to take that step back as well?
Yes, I think. Well, it depends on if you feel like it's right for you. But yes, I think if it's to do with confidence, then I'd probably say no. I'd probably say you have to just keep going for it. But I think if it's to like refine what you're doing a bit more, I think for me, like every time I've taken a step back, it's to really refine what kind of designer am I? What kind of designer do I want to be? Who am I? What is it that I'm trying to do? What is the impact that I want to have? What is my vision? And sometimes I do have to like readjust. As we were saying before, like sometimes you have to change the goalpost. The goalpost is constantly changing. Like who I wanted to be in the very beginning is so different to who I am now and what I want now, and based on things that I've achieved. I feel like if I hadn't taken those step backs, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing now, because I think I'd still be charging in the wrong direction. I feel like sometimes because other people might be pushing you to be like, okay, cool, do this, your head can get kind of like noisy, and like a lot of people are like giving you different opinions, especially like, let's say for example, like one thing happens and it like pops off. A lot of people are like, oh, you should do this, oh, you should do this, you should do this, and it kind of like clouds the judgment. And I think sometimes you have to like take a step back, silence all the noise, and really like listen within. What is it that you want to do? What is it that? What is it that? What is the kind
of design? Find your inner voice.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like it has to come from within, because when it comes from external, like I'll give some examples, but it's like there's been times where I've created things that are very loud, very colourful, very bright, and like people around me were like, oh, I don't think people are gonna wear this. Like it's a bit too loud. Like I think it's good for like marketing things, but I don't think this is like popular. And then it's like a year later or 2 years later, that's the kind of style that you see everywhere. And it's like, I didn't trust my own judgment. I kind of changed what I was doing to like appease what I felt like the people wanted. And then it ended up being that the thing that I was originally doing was the right track. So I think,
So I was going to say, but do you think then there's a balance there between understanding what people, because obviously you live in a consumer environment. People are the people you're selling to.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that between listening to what people are saying, like, oh, we might not, this is what the market's saying. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Versus, I actually think this is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So how do you have to be ruthless and be like, no, I'm straight on, I'm not trying to listen to anybody? Yeah. Or do you have to kind of find a balance, so to speak?
I think it very much depends on the kind of project that you're doing. I think, so for example, for like a project where like you're collaborating with a big brand or a big team, like that kind of collaboration, I think that requires you to think a bit more commercially, because they have their own customer base, and you do have to kind of like figure out what's the brand's DNA, and how can I connect with that customer in my tone of voice. But I'd say that like as a solo designer, I think you have to be ruthless. I think you have to trust your own judgment, because I don't think people know what they want. I think people want what
you give them.
Yeah. And if it's like a lot of people are liking it and other people see it, then they'll love it. Everybody be like, oh, I knew this was going to be the thing. But it's like, you have to trust that judgment. And I think also you have to come with fresh ideas. I feel like people get tired of seeing the same thing over and over again. And I think where you might go with what other people are saying, they're saying it because that's what they've already seen. And it's like, that's what's popular right now. But it's like, you don't want to be what's popular right now. You want to be ahead of the curve. You don't want to be around trends. You want to be something that's timeless. And it's like, creating something timeless does require you to be ruthless and to be very decisive and like very intentional with what you're doing. And I think if you trust your gut, that is the key. That's something that I would say to any designer, including myself, of like, trusting your gut is the key difference of like, because something might do well in the moment, but it's like in 6 months time, it's like, oh, this is boring now. But like, when you trust your gut and it's like, no, I think this is a thing. It might go wrong, but it might lead you closer to what is the thing. And you can't, it's not based on other people's opinions, and it's not based on the consumer. It's based on what you think the consumer wants. You know what I mean? It's based on your vision of what you think the consumer needs. I think it's a lot of time looking at like, what are the needs of the people? So like a good example is like COVID. A lot of brands during COVID were like, that did well, were like tracksuit kind of brands, like loungewear kind of brands, because at the time no one could leave the house. So you wouldn't need like a very expensive like couture dress. You're gonna need like some comfortable, casual,
functional.
You need something functional. So I think responding to what the times need, like the zeitgeist, I think that is the key, more so than just saying, okay, cool, customers are buying this, let's buy into that.
I should go charge towards that direction. I mean, you talked on timeless, and I think I want to bring it to Hale End and the collection. So obviously Saka, Fabregas, Iwobi, these are just some of the names that came through that Hale End Academy.
Yeah.
Now you've designed the Hale End Collection that actually honors that academy, a timeless academy that's seen all these great people that have gone on to do great things within football. It's an institution. So just, I mean, walk me through the process of how that actually happened, how it came about.
So how it came about was an agency that Arsenal work with a lot. They reached out to me and they were just like, oh yeah, we've got this opportunity. They didn't really say what it was, but yeah, we've got this opportunity. And then I sent through whatever. I sent through my portfolio and like a little video about like, I said that like, yeah, I'm interested in football, but I didn't really know if anything was going to come of it. So I didn't really like, it wasn't like a huge production or anything. Do you know what I mean? It was quite.
Were you briefed? Was there a brief that you had to respond to? Or was it just send your portfolio and we'll see?
Yeah, it was like, are you interested in football?
Okay.
Talk a bit about yourself. Yeah, so I thought it was football related. I knew it was football related, but I didn't know like what within that. It could have been anything. But yeah, it was just about yourself and like your design process and that kind of stuff, like quite vague. And then it came through that I got it and I was really happy. And then we had a first meeting and then I went there. So I went there to have a tour of the Emirates. I think I've been to the Emirates once actually, but I'd never been for a tour, which was good. Yeah. And I feel like that was at the beginning of like really, obviously I know got a legacy of Arsenal anyway, innit? Like I've been an Arsenal fan since like 3 days, innit? But it was like,
shout out to Arsenal.
Yeah. But it was like really being there and like feeling the energy. I feel like football culture is like no other. Like the fans of football are like no other. So I think it was just like really being there and like understanding that, and then going to Hale End Academy and like seeing like how it starts and like seeing the coaches, seeing the facilities, just seeing the places and being inspired, just like really being immersed in it. So yeah, it was just like taking pictures wherever I went, listening to them talk. Like I got a guided tour and it was just being very like being like a sponge basically, like trying to like think like, because I had no idea the direction I wanted to go in. I just knew it had to be something legendary because this is for Arsenal, this is Hale End inspired, and like based on like the success of like Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe and Nketiah, I felt like this has to do justice because it feels like a cultural moment. So yeah, that was the process. I started off like going around having the tour, and then I kind of went back and then just got to designing, and then I had to just like kind of filter through. And like normally as a designer, I'm very casting it wide. Like I design loads. Like I'll spend like
very
days.
Broad.
Yeah, very broad, because I don't know what's gonna hit. It's like it might just be something small that it like kind of grows from. And then yeah, we just had meetings back and forth, like myself and Arsenal and the agency as well. And yeah, we just kind of refined it together. But I very much got creative control though.
Yeah. I want to break that process down a bit more. Like in terms of anybody listening to this, what does it look like to speak to an agency, speak to Arsenal? Is it that you're phoning up the manager going, what does that actually look like for someone that would not be familiar? Like what do they need to do? What do they need to understand? Is it they need to understand communication, for example? Is it they need to understand stakeholder management, timings, like you rightly said? Also, you had your portfolio ready.
Yeah.
Is it a case where, you need to be equipped on those things as well? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I'd say
just talk a little bit about that.
Preparation is key. I'd
Yes.
say that, like, the statement, the quote of like, oh, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
Like, if your portfolio is ready, that makes it so much easier for you. And I think also being very intentional about your portfolio in the first place. So, like, your portfolio should reflect the kind of work that you have created / want to create. It shouldn't be, if you want to get into sportswear, don't have tailoring, like men's tailoring, unless you want to somehow link the two together. I think it has to be very intentional so that whoever's looking at it can kind of understand or have an idea of what you're going to create off the bat. So I'd say that. I'd also say communication as well. I feel like sometimes I've missed opportunities in the past of not looking at my emails regularly enough. Like, I might have just been, that project in particular, I think they gave me like 2 days to like give a response. It was like, oh, the deadline's in 2 days. And it's like, had I have not looked at my emails, that would have been gone. So I think keeping on top of like your socials or whatever's incoming is key. I think, I'd say like preparation and communication are the key. I'd say also afterwards, like once you do get it, it's like ask as many questions as you can, because the more you understand what is expected of you or what it is that the end product should look like, the better it is, the more prepared you can be, the more... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, what are some of the questions you asked them? Like, what did you ask them? Like, what was asked? Like, to help shape your vision. Obviously, it'll be unique questions to you, what's your thought process, but what some of the questions look like? So
even things as simple as like, is this a menswear collection or women's collection or unisex? Or is there a restriction on like the kind of products that we can create? Because sometimes, higher end pieces are going to cost a lot more. Is there a restriction for this? What is the purpose of why you want to do this collection? Like, where does it come from? What's the purpose of why you want to do it? I asked a lot of questions actually. I think that's one thing about me. I'm like quite almost inquisitive. I'm very curious. I really want to understand like what are your expectations, because then I can manage them, and also how can we make them match like your expectations and my expectations. I think asking. So for example, originally the project was going to be very a short like time window. So I think everything got done within like 2 months. Not the shoot, but all of the designs were created within like it was from December, and then it ended in like January/February. It was quite a quick turnaround, and it's funny because it came out literally like over a year afterwards, because I think there was just like lots of different reasons.
Exactly. There's so many things.
I think it's just understanding, like, I had to really understand what was expected of me in that time frame. 2 months to create a collection, even though it was only 10 pieces, is quite a lot, because you want it to be cohesive, you want it to be right. So like, I mean, if I was to show you the board of like where it started out, it was huge compared to how refined you get. So I think it's like really understanding, even like, who is the collection we're designing this for? Is it for the core customer, like 40-year-old male, or is it for like our youthful customer? Like, what is the purpose around this? And really understanding it. And that was like between the agency and the retail team at Arsenal, that we kind of all worked together to really have that understanding.
I understand that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, I think what you also said as well is like where you started from and where it ended. The board was huge, and then like you said, the product of it. It's a 10-piece collection, but people don't quite understand that sometimes this thing start off huge and then end up into this small thing. 2 months to turn around is nothing, I'm sure. And how long does a normal collection take to put together, just for context?
It depends. I mean, for me, I've done quite a few very quick collections. Like, I've done quite a few where it's like...
But it's not ideal.
It's not ideal. But like, even in my job at the moment, it's like, it's very fast paced. It's like, we need this designed. We're already late on the CP. So you have 2 weeks to design a collection, and it's like you might not even have a brief. Do you get what I mean? But I mean, for me, if I can create like a very intentional collection, I would rather like 4 months. I'd rather like a few months to like really be able to look at fabrics and look at trims and look at each thing like on a very specific level. That's what I prefer personally. But a lot of the time is of the essence. Like, time is the essence. Like 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, you need to do it. So yeah.
And do you think, I think going back to your earlier experience, do you think those times in the intern room, the sample room, all made that fraction of a time difference of like, my skills are honed now, so it's not, I'm not spending time figuring out, I'm kind of ready now for this.
Definitely. I would say that, and the combination, I say the combination of that, of like my skills being honed, but I think also like from going to university, like a fashion university, to working like as an internship, everything is under pressure. I feel like I probably work better under pressure because I'm so used to that being the normal setting. So that like when I'm in that situation, I'm not really overwhelmed. I feel like this is like, okay, cool, let's go, let's do it, whatever. I think skills, definitely, but I do think it's a development thing. I feel like even if I look at right now, having just an Arsenal project, if I was to do another project, I would do it better because of everything that I've learned on that project. So I think every time you learn and you know what I mean, you adjust quickly and you think, the way that I did that wasn't right. The way I do it in the future is like this. Like, for example, with that project, for the Arsenal project, I kind of started designs very early just because of the time. But if I had the time, like, for example, now I'd be like, okay, cool, let me do a proper mood board. Let me be very slow about this. Like, let me do more like market research and like consumer research. So I think each time you learn more and more on the job. But I definitely say that skills is the key. Like once you've honed the skills and you kind of know your design formula, like you know what your things are that you kind of draw to, like is it trims, is it color, is it textures, is it the kind of silhouettes that you use, like you kind of know your references and like where you want to go from quite quickly each time, much quicker than before. So
I think it's so key. Why I keep going back to that is because a lot of times I think real people want to do things and we kind of forget the smaller steps that needs to take there, the honing of the skills, the learning the designs, being in the back rooms basically trying to learn the stuff rather than jumping onto the bigger picture and hey, it's Arsenal, you know. So it's very interesting. And just to touch a bit more on the collection, so the Hale End Collection was launched, like you said, with 10 pieces, windbreakers, jackets, sweatshirts, all of it. Go buy it now. What was the inspiration behind like the light teal that you used in it, the messaging on the shirt, the shapes? Because I noticed there's like, you know, there's lines as well used across the collection. Why was that important? I think I have an idea, but just break it down a bit more.
Can I hear your idea first before I
Okay, so I think the lines, the inspiration for the lines came from the lines at Hale End, like where of the pitch. Hale End. Am I nearly there? You're
nearly there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's where the light teal. I'm not too sure because obviously we're familiar with the. Only if you went back in the day to the old Arsenal shirt and was like, I'm gonna put my twist on it. Yeah. I don't know if that's where you were thinking, but I think that's where the light teal and then the messaging maybe from the coaches. How did I do?
Okay, so the light teal comes from the building of Hale End. So when you go there, the main building is like a light teal, like washed colour. And I just felt like I just hadn't seen a building that colour and I thought it was quite cool. So I thought, let's try and incorporate this light teal. And I think also it was just like making something that was different from what was to be expected. So I would have loved to create like a more red collection, for example, but I felt like that was quite obvious because, you know, Arsenal was red anyway and there's other clubs that's red as well. But I felt like teal was quite an untapped colour. And also, to be fair, I didn't think of the Arsenal, the old school Arsenal t-shirt, but that could be part of it as well. But
let's say it was.
Yeah, you can say it was. But if you go to Hale End or you type it in on Google, you'll see there's a building that's like a teal wash colour. So that was part of it. The lines, they came from, I'd say the pitch, but there's like these mannequin dummy things that like they use as, I think it's like a defender dummy.
Yeah, like training drills when you do
training drills. Yeah. So like when I went there, I saw them like plotted, and I was like, I like the shape of that. So I kind of just kept the shape, like took a picture of it, kept the shape in my head, and then like when I was playing around, I was like playing around with like where I could put it. But it's funny that you mentioned the pitch because I did do some designs that was based on the pitch, like drawed out, and it was like on the hoodie. But it's just that we didn't choose that, we didn't go with that. But it was part of that story. It's just that got cut. But it was. Okay. It is to do with like the shapes of those dummy mannequins. And what was the last one you said? So
it was the light teal, the messaging.
The messaging actually comes from there was actually loads of quotes in Hale End. Like I can't like going there was very inspirational. Like even if you're not a footballer, there's just so many quotes
as a person,
around. Like and it's just it's very. And I think that is a quote they use for the players, like the student players. So it was something that we felt like they would have a connection with. And we wanted it to be that it kind of linked to the players, the coaches, and also like the parents that would like go and see them. So like that's why we wanted a windbreaker, because you know, if you're watching your son or daughter playing and it starts raining, then you want something to protect you. So we want it to be like quite functional, but also look quite cool and quite like youthful and like streetwear kind of vibe. So it was kind of like marrying the two of like function and form, and also like just the cultural climate of like what we wanted to do.
And then what about the overall grey of it being heavily centered around that grey?
The grey, the charcoal grey. I think it was in the same teal. It was like a washed out colour. So from then I was like, I want to have washes. Like I wanted it to be like a mild kind of colour, like a washed out colour, just because, yeah, I actually like the look of it. And also it was through like legacy, and like I feel like washed out things have like quite a vintage legacy kind of feel to it. And I think based on the legacy of the players that have been to Hale End, and also the legacy that's going to be created through the players that are there right now or have just come out of there recently, we want it to be around this idea of legacy and like heritage. So that's why we chose like quite washed out colours rather than like a solid jet black.
And I mean, just speaking of legacy, I mean, your heritage is from a Caribbean, Jamaican background. What is that? I guess, how does that play into your designs, number one, the people you're designing for, number two, and how's that helped you sort of further what you do, bringing culture into it? I know there's 3 questions there.
Yeah, so. Okay, it's okay. So I recently there was a documentary that came out on BET UK called Garms. I'd recommend anyone to watch it. And it's just basically around like Black British fashion's influence on the culture in general.
Yeah.
And it was there that I really started to understand that, like when I was talking about it, I started to really understand the link from like my grandparents who like I grew up with and like my parents, and how that kind of impacted how I am as a designer. And like this need, like for example, color coordination is something that is so important to me. Like it's just something that color in general is something that's so important to me as a designer. And I've realized that kind of comes from that background. Just like the way my grandma in particular like puts colors together and like is very intentional with like how she styles her pieces together. So yeah, I would say
sorry, and does your grandma have a fashion background, or she just fly like that?
She's stylish.
Yeah.
But it's funny because on my dad's side, like his twin sisters, they are designers and they make clothes in Barbados and America. And I think them, like being a child and like having clothes like custom made for you, you just feel special. Do you know what I mean? Like you feel like what I'm wearing, like nobody has it. So I think I always like that feeling of like, how can I create something that I haven't seen before? How can I create something that is just untapped? And like when somebody wears it, they know that this is this. It's not an imitation of something else. It's just this is it. And I think that pride comes from, well, you see it in like yardie kind of style in general. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very loud, flamboyant. Like I love it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of like how I translate it into like my own designs, of like that sense of pride and that sense of like, yeah, I'm wearing this, and it's very intentional. Sorry, wait, you asked me 3 questions, but I've forgotten the 2.
I think you answered it with the culture. I think it was also the people you're designing for.
Yeah.
How does that play an impact in terms of how you design? Like, so in terms of, I guess, or maybe not how you design, maybe because you know you're targeting a particular demographic. Are you like price conscious, for example, in how you approach?
Yes. You kind of have to be, because of the whole thing we were saying before about business and like entrepreneurship and like margins and that kind of thing. I think you have to know your customer, and well, you don't have to know, but you have to have an idea of the kind of customer that you want. If you're creating products that are £500 plus, it's not going to be really for like young people, because they don't have the budget for that. It's probably going to be for like mid-30s, you know, like maybe late 20s, because they're further along in the career. They probably have more disposable income. So I think you do have to very much think about, who am I designing for? And you have to kind of be quite smart with that, because, you know, you can execute something, the same thing in 2 different ways, according to 2 different customers. So like, for example, you could create something that is like, I don't know, let's say, for example, it's like quite bold and quite loud, but you do it through fabric, and you do it through color, and you do it through texture. It might be more expensive. Whereas if you do it through print, it's going to be cheaper, but it's more accessible. So I think it's just about finding the way. And I think also, somebody did tell me that like whenever you're coming to like create a collection, like you need to have like a triangle shape, like product map in your head. Like, so like essentials are like the cheapest, and that's going to be you know, the things that are most popular because they are the cheapest, and they're going to be t-shirts, caps, hoodies, like, you know what I mean, like quite essential products, but you can still like get through the branding, like the message through like print, you know, like embroidery, maybe that kind of thing. And then it's like concept pieces should be at the top because, you know, they're like the one-off pieces that people can't really buy into as much, but they're like the things that people remember you for. And then that like your signature product, which is like in the middle, in between, so it's like medium prices. So I think it's also about how can you create a collection but maybe show like all the levels to it. So you can, let's say your collection was about, I don't know, gardening. It's like, how can you convey that in 3 different levels? It's not with the lower level products, you can't really maybe get the most expensive trims or the most expensive fabrics, but you can use up the concept ones. But for the lower level ones, how can you still convey the idea but in a cheaper way so that it's accessible to people? Some people don't really care about accessibility, and that's fine. But I think you do see the success of some people who manage to create product that is attainable. It's affordable, but it's not always attainable. Like, it's hard to get. Like, you had that whole sold out kind of culture where it's like, it's okay pricing, but it's hard to get. And it's like a real type through that. And some people don't want to do the concept thing. But I think where I'm a designer that's always just loved creating like crazy pieces, I've always kind of gone for the concept pieces. But they don't always sell the best, you know what I mean? So, because not everyone can buy into it and not everybody has the confidence to wear it. But maybe that's the eye-catching piece that gets your name known and brings more visibility. So that's kind of what I'd say. Like, I think you can kind of think of your customers as like 3 levels. And like, how do you want to communicate with each? Not saying you have to, but it's just a way of doing it, and it can work well.
So you've talked about legacy, you've talked about your grandma, you've talked about Jamaica. You now have this Arsenal collection. You're going to go do amazing things, I'm very sure. Do you feel accomplished?
At the moment, probably not. Which is so weird because it's like, I have an Arsenal collab, so I should feel really accomplished. But I think it is a process. I think being sometimes like a black designer in fashion, that is something that is quite, it's not that it's new, because you know there's like Oswald Boateng, there's been people for a long time, but it is a very small pool. It's very small. And like fashion is a very, what's the word? It's been around for so much heritage in fashion. And like the biggest brands have been around for hundreds of years. So you see, like, for example, like tech is like it's like a newer industry. Like, it's like, you can kind of get your foot in and like maybe feel a bit more comfortable because everybody's new here. Like, we're all figuring it out together. You know, it's like the last 40 years it's been like really developing. Whereas fashion, I feel like, is built on so much rules, and like, it's like a very rigid, and like, it's like a very box kind of, like, if you don't come out of this, if you're not in this industry, you know, you're kind of outside. There's no in between. You're in between, or you're outside looking in. And I feel like there's not that many black designers that have like managed to cross over. I think somebody like Virgil Abloh, rest in peace, I feel like his impact is huge. Probably the biggest of like designers, like fashion, like fashion designers especially, but like designers in general, because I think he made it attainable for people that like, oh no, I can actually come from here but somehow get to here just through creativity and just through connections and just through doing what I want to do, like being cool, like being culturally culturally relevant. So I think, at the moment I don't feel accomplished, but I feel I'm on the right track, and I feel like that is a great feeling. But sometimes I get imposter syndrome, even at my normal job sometimes, like, because the industry is just not, it's not built around people that look like you. So sometimes you kind of feel like an alien or like a fish out of water in those spaces. And I think it is kind of like, I mean, more recently I'm kind of like trying to come out of it and like understand, like, no, you deserve to be here. Like, you're here because your work is good. Like, you're not here because of some tokenism. You're not here because of whatever. You're here because you worked in your craft and you've been working for years. Like, I've been working in fashion since like the past like 8-9 years. So it's been like a very long road. But I think, as I was saying before, like, the goalpost constantly moves. So like, where I was in uni, I think I would have been good just like being a designer at like, I don't know, anywhere, like even places that I've worked, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'd have been happy just doing that forever. But it's like, now I feel like the chase is on. It's like, no, I want more. What's the next thing? What can I do that's more? Like, when I got the K-Swiss collab, that was like a dream because I wore K-Swiss growing up, and it's like, when that happened, after a bit, it was like, okay, cool, what's next now? And then it's like, okay, cool, Benjart came. cultural impact. I've seen like people out wearing my stuff, which is something that I'd never experienced before. Like just seeing, at this train station, like people are wearing my stuff. And then it's like, that happens, move on. What's next now? I got Arsenal collab. But then it's like, you kind of move forward. And I do hope that I don't be one of them people that never really like smells the roses, like while it's happening.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard because you don't ever want to get comfortable. You don't ever want to get complacent in where you're at. You want to be like, nah, I want to have my own store. I want this to happen. I want to do my own fashion show. So I think constantly chasing is where I'm at. But I would say I feel accomplished in like, I've done one of my dream collabs. This is like definitely without a doubt one of my dream collabs. Like I think I've probably written this down somewhere actually, that I want to do a collab with Arsenal because I'm an Arsenal fan, so it would have been Arsenal. But yeah, I think I've written it down somewhere that this is what I wanted, but it's just ticking it off. Like what else I want now, and what more out there is that I can do to like push culture more, because that's essentially what most designers want to do. It's like what's going on in the world right now? How can I
influence that?
And how can I influence that? How can I push that more? And I think I've done things that like I've dreamed of, but it's just like, okay, I'd never really stop dreaming. You never really stop dreaming, and you just want to do more and more and more. So that's kind of like, I'd say I feel accomplished, but there's a very long way to go, and I just want to just love the journey and just that's it.
I think it's been great speaking to you and just understanding your story, understanding what a lot of this stuff means to you. You're also able to display your knowledge in this world, and I'm sure, and not even I'm sure, you're definitely gonna make an impact, which you already have anyway. And doing what you're doing. So thank you very much for being a part of this, and I'm looking forward to see what you do next, and hopefully you feeling accomplished finally in whatever you do. So,
thank you so much for having me on your platform as well. This is really cool.
Amazing.
And I feel like it's just sharing knowledge with everybody, which is, I feel like that is what is helping culture move forward.